everybody, welcome to a new International Comics Crusaders. Apologies for earlier where we had some technical difficulties. You know, technology, gosh darn it. Well, I'm your host, Al Mega, and of course I'm joined by my two brothers from across the seas, if you will, Mr. Dave Elliott and Chris Buse. How are you fellas?
Excellent.
Good,
How are you?
Good man.
Excellent.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Hope
Today,
everybody's
technology is completely against us.
Just eager to jump in.
And with that, we have the man that is bringing this kryptonite as Superman, because he is a legend in the comic book industry. He's a founder of Pacific Comics. He's worked in Diamond for over 28 years, stepped down some bit ago. But however, right now, he's doing an awesome project, and it's helping out LCSs in the community with Give Comics Hope. Dude, this is the one and only Bill Schanes. Woo! What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, how's it going, man?
It is going fantastic. I'm so happy to have you here, a legend. We're very humble. Thank you, sir, for taking some time out of your day to join us.
That was very kind of you. Thank you.
Good to have you on, Bill.
Absolutely, and there we go. So the man spoke. He said hello already. Mr. Dave Elliott, go ahead, take the floor, and I give it to you on the first question for our legend here, Mr. Bill Schanes.
Well, as you know, as many people might not be aware of Bill's background, so I think that before we go into Give Comics Hope, I think it's very important that we establish that Bill's not someone who's just come up with this idea and because he's a comic fan. Bill has been in this industry, and in many respects, he's been part of the backbone of this industry for a long time. One of the hidden men who, make sure we all get our product on a Wednesday, and doesn't see credit for it. So, for me, first time I ever heard of Bill was in, back Pacific Comics, buying Pacific Comics back in the day. If you want, it was my introduction to Bruce Jones. I was familiar with Rich Corbin through Eerie and Creepy, but, if you wanted to see Rich Corbin after that, you were going to find it Pacific Comics. Bill's the man who gave Jack Kirby his first creator-owned deal. I mean, this is the man who'd created everything we've seen in the Marvel movies so far, and created the big bad for DC. And it took all of that time before someone actually gave him a creator-owned deal. So, for that, it's like all ups to Bill for doing that. People like Mike Grell, giving them creator-owned deals. I'm still am to this day a huge fan of people like Bill Stout, and again to see his covers and the occasional interior work from Bill. That was Pacific Comics. First taste of Dave Stevens was Pacific Comics. Yeah. So it's from there moving on to Diamond, and again back in those days when there was 7, 8, 9, even 9 distributors, and Bill was working with Diamond then, and has since then and I believe you retired about a year and a half ago.
Actually, 7 years ago.
Damn, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I've been doing more stuff behind the scenes, consulting and a few other things, but my last time at Diamond was July 1st of 2013.
Wow.
Right.
See, it's time flies, man.
It does.
But it was, Bill was one of those guys that helped every retailer, helped every publisher. Everything has to run smoothly. It's all basically, it's a big clockwork. It's like one of those big Swiss clocks, and Bill's the master clockmaker, if you like.
Apparently since the age of 13.
Yeah.
Right.
So before, I think, there's so much, and you are part of that. And again, it's a massive part of comics that don't actually get credit for the work they do. It's not that you're seeking it, but there's so much gets done, and getting our comics, we're just glad they're there. So before we get into any of that, though, I'm always fascinated at first, yes, you like we could probably be on here all day because I've already heard we're friends on Facebook, so I've read a ton of your stories, old
Right.
stories about what you've done, and like how you managed to smooth over different parties and
Yeah,
things like that.
I probably posted 140 different micro stories on Facebook.
Yeah,
Just little snippets of history from a first person perspective.
yeah, and that's the
Yeah,
history that
right.
that so many people aren't aware of. There's all of this information. It's like if you've for those of you out there who haven't started reading Chris Buse's columns on Comic Crusaders, get over there because man, Steve digs deep and gets all of that information that you're just not aware of. You just don't know that ever even existed. So what worth doing. But what I'd like to ask Bill is, like all of us, when we make that first step, when we decide whether even it's an early age of 11 or 12, there's some point where you decide that comics is a place where I'm going to pitch my tent. It's where I'm going to no, I want to work in this industry. I want to make this my life's work. And I just want to ask you, for you, when was that moment for you? And, how did it come about and where did you go?
Sure, Dave, no problem. And thanks for the very, very kind introduction and brief overview of the Pacific Comics storyline there.
Oh, unfortunately, I had to keep it brief.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, just to recap a little, just to give back a little bit, when I was a young kid in school, I was diagnosed with a high end of dyslexia. And so really bad reading disorder where my eye and my brain weren't connecting properly as far as what I was seeing and reading and registering. And so during my early school years, I was getting constant C minuses and Ds, which in the US is about as bad as you can get before you flunked out. And every year my parents would go to have parent conferences that keep me to get the next year, so they wouldn't let me back in. And I spent 2 years in a special ed school, not going to regular school, trying to train my eyes how to read words. Jumping ahead to when I was 13, my brother was 17. We didn't have our car licenses yet. We were riding our bicycles all around town in San Diego, California. And we used to visit swap meets quite a far away from our house, about a 2-mile bicycle ride. And back then there was no worry about, kids going out at daytime, and there was no threats. Kids just did whatever kids wanted to. As long as you get back, in time for dinner, you were good to go.
Yeah.
So we drove our bicycles to the swap meet, and you walk up and down the aisles, you see all this junk on the ground, and old clothes and just stuff, sewing machines, records, lots of stuff. And this one lady had an old surfer panel truck, actually really a panel van, and she had on the ground, she had clearly just taken boxes of comics and turned them over and dumped them on the ground.
No.
So they weren't in boxes. Like right now we have the long white boxes.
Yeah.
There wasn't those boxes back then.
Yeah.
They were just boxes.
Yeah.
And clearly she was trying to sell someone's comics, and she just dumped them on the ground. And they were facing all different directions. Some were upside down, some were backwards. There's piles of them. And we had never seen a comic before.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I had walked up and looked at it and like, hey, these are pretty cool. And they got color pictures and his words, and I had no idea there was titles or artists or storylines or anything. And I literally just sat down and started reading. And probably 10, 15 minutes later, the lady was getting like, I didn't buy anything, kid. And I'm like, well, no, I'm just going to read for a while. She says, well, I said, well, how many comics do you have? She says, well, I got about 1,000 comics. I said, wow, well, just out of curiosity, what do you want for them all? And she says, well, how about $50 for the whole load?
Oof.
I'm like, $50. I'm 13. I've never had a job before. I'm like, $50 seemed like an astronomical amount of money. So I said, well, let me do this. If you could just not selling comic books for 1 hour, I think I can bicycle home the 2 miles, talk my parents into it, have them drive their car down and buy the comics. So I quickly bicycled home with my brother. My mother and father are both teachers. They knew my reading ability was at the toughest end of the spectrum, and I was showing real enthusiasm to read something. And being teachers, they weren't making a lot of money either. But like, geez, if we can invest $50 in his ability to read something, that might be a good investment for us just to help him in schooling and stuff. So my mom drove us down in her station wagon, the old-fashioned family station wagon with the 2 bench seats in the back. And we bought the comics for $50, about just under 1,000 comics. We didn't have any idea what the titles were. We didn't know Marvel and DC. We didn't know anything. As we got home, we were unloading the comics from the back of our wagon. And my next door neighbor came over, a friend of ours, who I never knew about comic books, and said, "Hey, wait a second, you have Fantastic Four #2. How much do you want for it?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? What's a Fantastic Four and what's a #2? What does that mean?" And he goes, "Well, it's a comic book series, and I'll pay you $38 for it."
Damn.
And my brother and I are like, "Wait a second, we bought 1,000 comics for $50. We're not going to have $9.99 left over for $12. That's a good idea." We had no idea what was inside of it, and the only condition was, and we sold it to him that day, was he had to let us read it first before we could take possession. Because I wanted to read all the comics.
Yeah.
And so now we had 990 comics left over for $12. And the $38 we get back to my parents, so we only owe them $12 now.
They must have been so happy.
Oh, that was pretty cool. They're like, he's reading and he's giving us money back. That's a good thing. And then apparently that friend of ours who didn't know about it, he told like a bunch of his friends that all collected comics. And San Diego is kind of a big hub for comic collectors because of Comic-Con International. Although back then it had many different names way back in the day. And the next weekend we probably had 30 kids come over to our house. None of them we knew.
Nice. Get out.
And they were shopping in our bedroom these 999 comics. And we sold hundreds of dollars of comics.
I love the hustle, bro. At that age, I love it.
Wow.
It was totally a happenstance thing. And what was really interesting is a number of those early collectors that came over, those early readers, were Comic-Con committee members.
Oh,
Say
right.
word.
Yeah.
And so they said, "Hey, Bill, we got this comic convention going on. It's only a second year. Do you want to join the committee?" And we're like, "I'm still trying to figure out what comics are, but the committee sounds cool."
Wow.
And I think they invited us pretty early on. My brother, Steve Schanes, who's part of my partner in Pacific Comics, he ended up being the chairman of Comic-Con for a couple of years in the early years. And I was the huckster's room liaison, or the dealer's room, now called the exhibit hall.
Right.
But back then
So
it was
fancy
called it was now called the huckster's room, because you were huckstering like a carnival act.
Yeah.
You were shouting loudly as people walked by your booth and saying, "I got an old comic book over here, come to my booth." It was kind of a Wild West situation.
I wish it was like that still in a sense, because nowadays it's just so quiet. Just the dealer standing there with pricey, hoping that you ask how much.
Right. So the start of our company, and by the way, we were in a place called Pacific Beach, which is a beach community in San Diego. So we were in Pacific Beach, and we just bought comics. Thus, Pacific Comics was formed that second weekend.
The second weekend after buying.
Right. Because the first weekend we had to read a bunch of comics. That was important to read the comics first.
Yeah.
And so we did, and then we had a couple $100 in cash and coins. Most of our friends didn't have $20 bills; they had stacks of coins.
Yeah.
They're just getting from paper routes and other things. So we had a little bottle of money off the side that was our cash register, doing business at my parents' house. And my parents' house was quite large, but we started off just having the comics in our bedrooms. But as the weeks went on, we became a real transient point for local collectors to come and buy, sell, and trade.
Right.
So there was no game plan, there was no business plan, there was nothing other than this act of discovery at a swap meet, and having this friend come over that very same day as we were unloading to make it understand. And we quickly learned that if you looked inside, there was little names of artists and writers inside. And there's a teeny box in the bottom telling you that someone published it. And so then he realized, hey, most of these comics from the 50s and 60s, because we bought the load in the 71, so there couldn't have been any 70s comics really in there. There was a few Golden Age books, but mostly 50s and 60s, which is a pretty prime zone. And so it really was a stumble, but what a great stumble. And because of my reading disability, since I was enjoying them and my friends all liked them, my brother and I, Steve, again, really felt like, hey, we can make a little business of this. We never envisioned everything being a little cottage industry, make a few $100 here and there, and that was good for us. But it really was a lightning in the bottle situation. And I think at the end of that second year, we did like $30,000 in sales.
What?
Wow.
What?
We never wrote down what was in that collection. We have no idea what we sold. I have no idea.
So that's I wanted to ask you that. So you
We
have
have no
no idea
idea.
what you. But so how did you gauge the value at least to them? Were you gauging their excitement on it? You know.
I think they're just making us offers. I'm sure they were creaming us.
Okay, of course.
But that's okay.
You know us fans and collectors. Hell
and,
yeah.
You know, and they were our good friends.
Yeah.
When the bad friends were really going to take advantage of us.
Only good friends would only do
Don't I know that
shit to you.
feeling? Don't I know that
But
feeling?
we also got one of our friends gave us an overstreet price guide. Was only in the second year as well, so it gave us some guidelines.
Okay.
Although the concept of grading back then changed dramatically when Chuck Rosansky founded the Edward Church collection, which is commonly known as the Mile High collection. You know, we had comics that we thought were in mint that would barely be a very good comic when the Edgar Church collection got founded.
Yeah.
Right.
That's when true mint got established. But back in the early 70s, at least for me, if it had staples and it had covers on it, it was like near mint. We didn't really know we didn't know what was going on, so it was okay. So that was kind of a long answer to your question, Dave. We really stumbled upon it
Yeah.
with no business. There was no business plan. We were just two teenagers looking to read some old funny books.
But you know what?
we did.
But you know what I love about that? I love about the fact that here was someone who found comics as a way for getting them to read.
Right.
So purely you were out there it was an educational tool.
Right.
And for it to then, through sheer circumstance, it gave you that, like, oh, you literally on the first day you discovered that they were cool, made your first sale, and moved you in that direction of, wow, this is cool. I can make money. Not necessarily you weren't thinking about living at it, but
No.
all of those things. It was that, as you say, lightning in a bottle. And that's, I think, particularly for years ago and myself, it was that's what comics brought about. It was, it was that sort of, it gave you that, inspired you. And it's where you found all your friends, all your early friends from.
Right. Well, and back then, most collectors were very, very young. Most were in teenagers. There were some 20-year-old guys and gals, but mostly teenagers. And this was their escapism. This was, and of course, covered prices were 10 cents, 12 cents. So very inexpensive thing to buy.
Yeah.
So if you had a paper route, or you were doing lawns, or you were doing side jobs, and you got a couple bucks a week, you could buy every new comic that came out. You could buy every one of them. So really, the cost of entry for consumer was very reasonable.
Well, I think we've talked about that a few times, and I've talked recently how when I was at a young age, it was my parents never had any money, but I had literally the equivalent of like maybe a dollar pocket money. But what I would do is I would go around the local parks and area and collect all the empty Coke bottles and cans, and I would get the deposit back on them. And it was a bigger deposit back then, and that I made like 10 times my pocket money back.
Right.
And then there was money that my grandparents would give me. It'd be like, oh, here's some money whenever I go over and visit, and that enabled me. But again, that's you're still thinking like, oh well, that's not a lot of money. But I bought every Marvel comic, every DC comic, Charlton comics where I could get them. I was living in London, so I was buying sort of as many British comics as I could.
Right.
And and eventually when heavy metal came out, that got folded into what I was buying, and
that was like 77, I think.
Yeah, and so to be at that, and I think that's the price point to entry to being a collector was such an easy one that it's and I think that not to deviate us into a separate conversation, but that it is an industry that's so reliant on collectors, and yet we publish so much material and it's so expensive comparatively now that it seemed almost impossible to be a collector anymore.
It can't be. It's impossible to be a completist for sure.
Yeah.
You got to be in the high rent district to be a
Oh, yeah.
completist.
But, you know,
Yes,
just
so.
even if tomorrow I just said, you know what, I'm just going to be an X-Men collector. Like, just being able to complete that run,
Right.
like, that's expensive.
Imagine
Wait,
me trying to do the Conan run, and when I looked into how many
Yeah.
different versions in Marvel, oh my God,
Wow.
alone, that's
Right.
gonna be a while.
right.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
at the same time, you know, I had that bicycle I rode to the swap meet in San Diego, in the States. We had these thing called banana bikes.
I remember those.
It had the big long seat that was all put a cushion, and you had the high handlebars.
Like
And some of
choppers.
us, it's kind of a mini chopper, but kind of banana bikes. At least
Right.
in San Diego we did, and we had some tassels at the back that made us look a little goofy, but it came with tassels, whatever. And to
Yeah.
earn extra money, I had jury rigged to the side of it a couple of tubings, like metal tubings, that I could put a broom, a dustpan, and then a little bit of a mini surfboard, so I could go to 7-Elevens and sweep their parking lots for $5, and then go
cool.
surfing afterwards with the money.
Oh, right.
So I actually made it was like a little mobile cleaning unit on my banana bike. It was pretty. It
Yeah.
looked horrific. It was absolutely an obscene looking device, but it served its purpose. And my 7-Eleven route in Pacific Beach, there was 5 7-Elevens between my house and the beach, about a 2-mile bicycle ride, the other direction from the swap meet. So literally, I just zigzagged across downtown Pacific Beach, hitting 7-Elevens every Saturday morning. And I made them a deal. I said they pay me $5 cash. I got a free Slurpee, and I got to pick the comics out first.
Cool.
That was my fee. So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
In your
Excellent.
journey, let me ask you, how long before you started really figuring out value of the books?
It took a couple weeks because clearly people were coming over more and more those first few weeks, and it became obvious that they knew what they were asking for, and we didn't.
Yeah.
So I mean, we had good friends, and I'm sure they weren't taking too much advantage of us, but they probably got some pretty good deals. And that, you know, we didn't. Only book I remember out of the 1,000 books is the FF #2. That's it. I have no idea what the other books were. But you know, there's probably some pretty key items in there. If FF2 was there, there might have been #1. There could have been a Spidey one, Amazing Fantasy 15. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, 1,000 books from the 50s and 60s might have been a pretty good set.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, that was a pretty good run of 20 years.
You must have had some crazy gems there, because you know, then you go from you know, building this little distribution of yourself over there in the Pacific, right?
Right.
I mean, amazing. But then what's even crazier is what in the world gave you guys the publishing bug?
Well, that came quite a bit later. Actually, it's kind of a weird stumble, in fact, in our
Another
grand.
stumble.
Well, in our non-business plan, and we started off buying this swap meet of comics, these 1,000 books or so, and then we figured out about 2 months later we needed to get more collectors to buy from us because now the money's starting to roll. We're feeling pretty good. We got liquidity of hundreds of dollars. We're doing great. And so we did a little mail order catalog, a little black and white pamphlet catalog, where we just listed, you know, Conan #2, $4, and this $3, and that $12, and based on whatever Overstreet price guides were. After we figured out Overstreet price guide, and all of a sudden, Southern California was sending us in mail order checks. Well, actually, not checks, but cash. Almost no one. The collectors are too young to write checks, so we just got cash in the mail. You know, dollar bills, $5 bills, oftentimes just cash of coins.
Yeah.
And of course, the coins would rip the envelope, so half the money would be gone by the time it got delivered. So we have no idea what they sent, but we took them for their word. And so our mail order business started that same year as well.
Wow.
And that progressed to be, within a year and a half, I think one of the biggest mailer companies in the whole country of the U.S. We had thousands and thousands of consumers buying from us, literally.
Yeah.
We were doing 2 catalogs a year. One of the really funky things about the catalog business that, again, our expertise kind of gave us away, is when you do a catalog, you need more than one copy of each item to list it. We missed that little detail. So in our first catalog, we listed Conan #2. I think it was $3 or $4 price. And for some reason, Conan #1 got good national distribution, but the West Coast got no copies of Conan #2.
Really?
So they're really hard to find. And so all of the West Coast consumers saw our Conan #2 spot, and it's like every person that knows about comics bought it from us. So we got 600 orders for coin number 2.
For one copy.
And we had one copy.
Wow.
So,
That's
our,
hysterical.
our learning curve was really awesome.
That's
So
hysterical.
we didn't have a checking account, but all of a sudden money was trying to pile up in our house. We had a couple $1,000s, and
Wow.
you can't keep $1,000 when kids are roaming all around the house.
Yeah.
You got to give it the cash somehow. So my mother took me to our local bank. What's called Crocker National. Now it's defunct. And said, she went to the bank guy and said he wants to open a bank account. And I had jars of cash and dollar bills and coins. I didn't know they could roll them up in little things for pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. I didn't know they had those things. I just brought in jars of coins and paper money. And the banker said, well, he's too young. He can't have an account. And it infuriated my mother. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what a bank account was. My mom goes, but look, he's got a little business here. He deserves to have an account. And so I took the bars out of like a shopping bag and put them on a desk. And it was like almost $3,000 in coins and dollar bills.
Oh, wow.
All small, and a couple of checks. Because actually we didn't know what checks were. They were like oddball things. And the banker's like, well, that's a lot of money. He goes, well, my mom says, open an account in his name only. And she said, the banker said, you have to countersign. She said, I'm not countersigning. I'm taking the money elsewhere. Take his money or don't take his money. But we're opening up an account today. So he opened up an account for us, which was really cool.
Oh, nice.
He counted on his desk. He counted all the coins by hand. It was totally ludicrous. And like, we got our first checking account when we were, 13 years old and 17 as Pacific Comics. Very strange happenings. And there's no master plan, but it was a stumble, a bumble, humble to get to the next point.
Wow.
And that mail order business turned out to be quite large, doing a couple $100,000 within a couple of years. And then my parents said it had gotten actually so out of control. There were so many people visiting my parents' house, and we had overtaken now 3 bedrooms full of comics. Totally.
You took over the whole house.
We did, and on a weekend there could be 60 kids in our house just roaming around.
The comic house. I love it.
They're in the refrigerator getting food. They're shopping in our bedrooms.
I hope you were charging for the food.
No, that was a benefit of shopping in our house. And then we had a pool in the background, so some of them were just going swimming, not buying comics. They were just swimming.
Oh no, hell no, man! You gotta dip. You better buy a comic before you dip into the pool.
So it was getting a little out of control. So my parents said, I think you gotta not move out personally, but you gotta get rid of this stuff. It's just too much.
This is a movie.
We have no family. We have no family life. So we found a small store just a few blocks from the beach in Pacific Beach, which we opened up our first store in 73 or 74, I think. Small store, 800 square feet, not very wide, but very deep. Sandwiched between a dog grooming place and a really old-fashioned bar, where the bar had just the seats and some old beer signs and the taps, and it was smoky and it was ugly, and it was a horrible bar. Clearly means I didn't pick the best retail location, because in retail it's all about location, location, location. I went for the cheapest rent possible.
You went pocket.
So it's $200 a month for this almost 1,000 square feet.
Oh wow!
And all we heard all day long was the drunks being drunk through the thin walls, and the dog grooming place with dogs yelping as they're getting clipped. So all we heard was guys yelling and then dogs going yip yip yip. As we're selling comics, it was very strange.
Yeah, I would have said you just make believe you're in Gotham, people. That's all.
It was a little bizarre.
So what must have been also interesting for you then is, because you'd had your first big major find, you had your first 1,000 comics,
Right.
but did that mean then that weekends were spent sort of like, okay, what other kind of car boot sales, local jumble sales, where can we go to find more stock? What did
absolutely. We had not checked newspaper ads before or classifieds.
Right.
Back then there was a classified advertisements in the back of newspapers, people selling dishwashers and lawnmowers and all kinds of things they didn't need anymore. They had bought a newer version or toasters or whatever it was back then. And so we were looking and we found classified ads for comics. In the back of in the comic books there were little micro ads, little 1-inch spacers, rare comics sold or bought. many of the fans coming over to our house to buy comics were bringing comics with them. They were bringing boxes of comics to get the couple they wanted. So we would sell them or trade them 3 or 4 and get 50 in return.
Great.
So we're kind of having this geometric growth of inventory. Still off that first 1,000 comics or so.
Insane.
And it was insane. And we found more comics at more swap meets, and we started doing more swap meets by more bicycle rides. So we can now do 2 or 3 swap meets in a weekend versus 1 to try to find more stuff.
Great.
We were dropping off flyers on top of people's windshield wipers on their cars, saying, "Hey, we want comics to get in your house." So all of our neighbors were annoyed because we were driving. We were lifting up their windshield wiper, putting a flyer in, saying, call Bill and Steve down the street. We got cash, as in cash, for comics. So it was just this organic growth thing.
Crazy. I love it.
That sound is not me, by the way.
That's not me either.
Nope.
It was a really amazing growth situation, and when we opened our first store, within the next year and a half, we opened up 3 more, and we were the first store in San Diego County, not the first store in California. There were some in LA, and some pretty famous ones in Los Angeles. Bob Sidebottom had one of the early ones in the San Jose area. In LA, you had Cherokee Books, a very famous, really rare comic dealer, collector's bookstore. But we were one of the first, let's say, back-issue stores that also sold new comics. And in San Diego, we were the first store. And it was all this master plan that we had no idea what we were doing.
So did you at any time ever think, like 7-Eleven, where they had comics, well, where did they get them from? And, it's like, hey, so where are you getting them from? And do they have any that they want to get rid of? Right.
So when we opened up our stores, we realized there was new comics coming out, and so we asked a couple 7-Eleveners, the guys I was sweeping the parking lots for, where do you get yours from, and what do you do with your non-sold books? Just like you said, Dave. You have leftovers. What happens? And back then they were stripping the covers off.
Oh yeah.
That's just their system.
Yeah.
So they stripped the covers off and threw away the coverless book, and how many covers they returned, how much credit they would get back. And they told me about this local place called San Diego Periodicals, which is a local San Diego distributorship for new magazines and periodicals and comics. And they were kind of owned by some, let's say it, old school Italian guys.
Okay.
with all the Italian connotations attached.
I capiche.
Oh, okay.
Yes, capiche, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we rode our bicycles down there to open up an account to buy new comics every week. And when they were getting new comics, they came in big brown paper bags with metal straps. So the comics wouldn't break the bags.
Yeah.
And the printers would wrap the metal straps around so tight, they would leave indent marks on basically every book.
Yeah.
But for a newsstand consumer, no one cared. For a casual consumer, they were just reading the comics. For me, I wanted ones without the strap marks. So I found out what time the trucks were arriving, where the trains were arriving, and I asked them if I could unstrap them for them and pick out the ones I wanted before they put them throughout the 7-Elevens throughout the county. So I was trying to get the least damaged books I can get for my needs.
Right.
And ironically, jumping forward a little bit, within about a year or so, we ended up buying about 75% of all the comics coming to San Diego for our stores.
What? Wow.
They actually stopped distributing for a while, or not as many comics, not as many 7-Elevens, because we said, as we were unboxing them and unstrapping them, we were taking more and more of them.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, we asked the distributor, which was a big mistake on my part. We were getting 20% off the cover price with full returns.
Ooh.
Well, 20% for a business is not very good. That's a pretty small margin. So I said, well, can we get a higher discount? And they said, well, you're buying most of our books anyway. All right, we'll give you 25% off. That's a 5% discount. That's it's a 40% more increase in profit. Good deal. Little did I know what discount they were buying at. And then half a year went by. I said, well, we need more discount. And we finally got the 40% off.
Wow.
And they said, but if you ask us again, you get no more comics from us. One more request, we're cutting you off. because we were upsetting their capital cart, their money train.
Right. Yeah.
And so I did ask one more time,
Oh,
and they basically said, is this a PG show or anything goes show?
Oh,
oh,
anything goes. Just go.
Okay.
yeah.
So he basically told us that he basically goes to fuck off and good luck finding comics from now on because you're not getting comics from us anymore.
Wow.
Well, that was a big problem because we had stores, we had mail, we needed new books to fill. And we didn't know if anybody else sold them. So I basically whined and said, look, if you're going to cut us off, at least give me some time to find an alternative source. So I said very innocently, where do you buy your comics from? And the guy said, well, we get them through a national guy, gets them from Marvel and DC. Their names inside the comic books, go call them up. And that's what I did. I called him up.
Wow.
And my first phone call was to Saul Harrison, who was really the vice president of sales and marketing at DC at the time. And I said, Saul, I got these stores out in San Diego. I got a millimeter business. I want to buy comics from you. And he goes, we don't sell comics directly, but we just opened up a guy called Phil Suling, Seagate.
Right.
Just opened him up. He's our guy. Go buy from him. He sells comics at 50 off.
Ooh.
I went from 20 to 25 to 40, now 50 off. So he called Phil, got a deal with Phil, and I think we were account number 7 or 8, I think, from Phil Suling. I don't think it was called Seagate back then. I think it was just called Phil Suling.
Right.
And Johnny Levis was his partner. And we bought our comics in there, and it came in, the mail order. We just show up in the mail by post office. We didn't know what day would show up. They would just show up. And back then, you had in incomes of 25 per issue from Phil. He didn't want to be bothered with counting the individual copies. So the print would mark them, they put them in the packages, 25 one way, then reverse them 25 the other way. So for Phil, you just grab a lot of 25 and say you get 1 load of 25 or 2 loads or 3 loads. So if you wanted 16 of a comic book, you had to order 25.
Yeah.
If you wanted 27, you either ordered 25 or 50 from Phil. Again, making a leap forward another year or so, we asked for Phil for a better discount. And Phil's also not another guy that liked to be challenged. Not a tall man, but very skinny California stick kids. He was very imposing. And he said, well, just get him from the publishers. This is not working for me anymore. Just get it from the publishers. So I called Saul Harrison back. I said, Saul, Phil's basically not kicking us out, but encourage us to buy from you. I might have ad-libbed the words there a little bit of encouraging us. And Saul said to us, I'll tell you what, Bill, I'll sell you directly. Here's our terms of sale. I need a $10,000 cashier's check, paid in advance, 3 months.
Ooh.
You have to order increments of 50, and you have to order by a certain deadline to get the books 3 months later. So I said, Saul, done. I'm going to do it. Well, now in my mind, I had to come up with $30,000, 3 months ordering in advance. I didn't have any money. But we hustled, we did things, we get some money together. And then Saul called me back and says, well, last thing is, I got to meet you at my office in New York City. I'm like, okay, we can do that. I'll be out there in a few weeks. I've never flown before, never traveled to a business meeting before, other than local things. So my daily attire in San Diego was, back then we called them thongs. Now they're called flip-flops.
Okay.
But boy, is that name changed completely.
Oh yeah, I just thought the words right now, like, oh my God, is that what you were wearing in this meeting?
Every person in comic books were wearing thongs back in the day, but not as we think about them today.
Yeah.
Now they're sandals or flip flops or whatever.
I'm not going to ask you to stand up, Bill, just in case.
They're not. Don't worry. But then, so I used to wear thongs to my office, my stores, and then a T-shirt and shorts with the little strings hanging down because I didn't care about what people thought of me. They wanted the comics. And so I bought a pair of corduroy pants and a polo shirt with my thongs, and took the flight to Manhattan, which was my first plane flight. I didn't understand. I landed at Kennedy and didn't realize Kennedy Airport's not close to Manhattan.
Yeah.
And had to get a taxi ride, which was probably $8 or $10 back then. And that was probably almost all the money I brought with me because I didn't realize things cost a lot of money.
Oh wow.
So by the time I got to Manhattan, I was almost broke. I got there the night before and I booked a hotel. And I was worried about being on time for my first meeting with a publisher. So I showed up almost an hour early outside the old 666 offices at New York, the devil's address.
Yeah.
And I just pacing in front of the office back and forth nonstop, just for an hour pacing. I was trying to get my courage up. What am I going to say? I had the cashier's check, but I didn't know. I'd never been a business guy before. I was really, I was still a teenager. I was pretty uncomfortable.
Fall upon this journey. I mean, it's crazy.
It's really just ridiculous. Again, there's no business plan. I'm winging it. Every day is a wing. And so about 10 minutes before, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out, there's an elevator involved. What do I do? How do I get in the elevator? There's buttons. Okay, I got to press a button. But in San Diego, back then, there's almost no tall buildings. So elevators are kind of rare.
Yeah.
So it's fine. So I get up the offices, and there's like reception offices, and it's got the old-fashioned big box of buttons that the reception would push for each individual office. And she would press the button like an intercom, then let the button up, and the guy on the other end would then press his button to talk. And again, the button would be pressed back and forth to dialogue. So I made an appointment to Mr. Saul Harrison, got in, the reception there, said, I'm here for my 10 a.m. meeting with Saul Harrison. My name's Bill Schanes, can you tell him I'm here? So she presses the button and says, Saul, Mr. Bill Schanes is here for your meeting. She lifts her hand up, and somebody squawks back, be out in a couple minutes. Fine. Tells me to sit down in the corner, and I'm sitting there, and like 15 minutes go by, nothing's happening. I'm like, what's up with that? Is this how business is done? Is it? I don't know. I don't know what the bar is to figure out how long do you wait to ask if they forgot. So I walked back over to the secretary and said, would you mind just reminding him, I'm out here, and I don't know, is it 15 minutes very long? I'm not trying to be insulting. I just don't know what to say. Mm-hmm. So maybe he forgot. So if you don't mind, just ringing him up again. So she goes, Mr. Harrison, Bill Schanes still out here? He goes, yeah, I'll come right out. Fine. So he walks out. I sit back and he walks out. I've never seen a picture of him before. I've never been before. So a guy walks out, looks around the lobby, and then goes back inside and leaves. I didn't know this was Saul Harrison. I didn't know it was him. So I wait 10 more minutes. I asked the secretary, now it's almost a half an hour. I'm getting like a little peeved. And I think a half an hour is too long to wait in my native seat. So I said, what's up? She said, well, he just came out. You didn't say anything. I said, that was Saul Harrison? I said, yes. I said, well, shit, he was in a three-piece suit. And I'm in my flip-flop. I'm in my thongs, my corduroy pants, and my polo shirt, which might have had some holes in it, by the way. And so she calls him back one more time and says, Saul, Bill's still here. He goes, I was just goddamn out there. He wasn't there. He's sitting right here. He goes, don't let him leave. I'm coming out right now. So he runs out, and he bursts the door open, and he looks at me and goes, are you Bill Schanes? He goes, and I'm like, in my sheepish little voice, I'm like, yes. He goes, well, why did you say anything before? He said, I didn't know it was you. I didn't know who to expect. I figured you were the one guy in the lobby. I was sitting there. You would introduce yourself. And he goes, how old are you? I just, like 15 and a half, 16. He goes, you're a kid. He goes, yeah, I don't meet with kids. He starts walking back towards the door. I'm like, holy shit, I blew my thing in minutes. So all I could think of was, I brought the $10,000 cashier's check. That's all I could say. I shouted in the lobby. I got the $10,000 cashier's check. And he goes, come on in, kid. Literally, that's how, it's just like that. Like, okay, he's a serious kid. Bring him on in. And he waved me in the back office. And the next half an hour, which all the meeting lasted, he showed me how to order comics. He gave me a very simple typewritten order form. He took the $10,000 check. And we were an account after that. And I think we were DC's second or third account outside of Seagate, and maybe the preamble to Big Rapids out of Michigan, which I think was called Windy City. I'm not sure which one.
This blows my mind.
More crazy stories though. Yeah.
It blows my mind, bro. This needs to be transformed to a movie. Some real talk. My God.
At least a book, the book at the very least, Bill.
I have written these 120, 130 Facebook postings. I've got about another 80 of them drafted up there. I'm just fact checking right now, make sure I don't, time does something to you. But I am going to do a short book next year, just a short, I'm going to call it memories. It's got a better name, but just little clippets of brief snippets of here, snippets of there. Not a fully orchestrated story, but just fun anecdotes, fun stories, weird happenings, things of that nature. I know in the same time thing when we had the DC account, of course now I was anxious to buy from Marvel and of course DC, when I got DC, it was now 60% off. So it went from 20, 25, 40, 50 through Phil Suling, and now 60 off. Well, this is a huge jumps in margin.
Yeah.
So I then called up Marvel and talked to a guy named Ed Shukin, who was a kind of a business guy there. And Ed was going to be out at the Comic-Con that year after I called. And said, how about I meet you at the Comic-Con? We'll have a business meeting. And if I like what you're saying, then I'll be up as an account. So I met Ed. This is before the new convention center at the old downtown convention center. There was a fountain in the courtyard.
That's it.
It was kind of a central meeting point for early meetings. Just meet the fountain and we'll walk from there. So I was nervous meeting the first Marvel guy, so I arrived several minutes early. And this guy, a three-piece suit, business suit, the vest and everything, showed up. Kind of my height, short and stocky. I wasn't stocky, but I was short. And I said, well, there's nobody at Comic-Cons that wears suits. There's got to be a New York guy. It's got to be a New York guy. So I just said, are you Ed Shukin? Yes, I am Ed Shukin. So we were just doing just introductory, you shake hands, spend a couple minutes chatting. And then out of the blue, he says, well, Bill, would you mind if I hold on for a minute? I said, well, sure, but, whatever. And he says, boy, look at that beautiful woman across the courtyard. I said, a lot of beautiful women across the courtyard. And, I'm barely dating. What do I know? And he's like, well, do you mind if I leave for a second? I'm like, oh, okay. So literally leaves our impromptu meeting at the fountain and walks over to a really very gorgeous woman. And I'm like watching this whole, it's like a small screen TV, just watching this happen right in front of me. And he's walking over, and he clearly didn't know her, but within a minute, he's pulling out his hotel key.
No.
He's making the move. So I'm like, what is that how it's done in New York? Is that what happens? so not politically correct. I mean, way overboard.
Wow.
So, and clearly she's rebuffing him. Nothing's happening there. So he's walking back. So he gets back and he said, well, she wasn't going for it, so let's have our meeting now. I said, well, hold on a second. Let me get I've invited my girlfriend to come to lunch with us. I think nice that I thought he'd soften up like I just met a lady and I thought it'd be nice to have a girlfriend with me. So she walks over and that's the girl he propositioned.
Too
The
funny.
girl he gave key to was my girlfriend. She was waiting to be introduced.
Oh my God.
So when she came over, I said, this is my girlfriend at the time, Cynthia Weiss. And by the way, we're not going to lunch with you, and I don't want to shake your hand. We're done. And we just left. Because obviously we can't do business with that guy under that arrangement.
Right.
But all the foot and mouth diseases you could ever have, that was it.
That's insane. Excuse me while I pimp for a minute. On your girl unwittingly.
So, it's all these strange, unimaginable little things happening in a strange environment, but that's just nature of what happened with Pacific Comics along the road of discovery.
Yeah, I think comics was always at least until the end of the 20th century was always there was something I'm tempted to say ghetto about it, but there's something that was like very casual about it. I remember I think it was my first or second San Diego. This was back when everyone had everyone jointly had parties. I think Marvel and DC actually had a party together one of the nights. Yeah. And it was all very everyone together, and it was with the fans as well. It was like the guests, the fan, everyone had a party together.
Right.
And I remember there was one night of the week where there was no party, and I was in the Westgate Hotel. Mark Verheiden and Mark Nelson were in the room opposite. Right. So we decided at breakfast one day that we were going to have a party that night because no one else was. And it was this was like I'm pretty sure it's just my second San Diego. And literally, because there was nothing else to do, everyone came to our party.
Of course.
So it's got Frank Miller, John Byrne, Jack Kirby, everyone you could possibly think of. Stan Lee, I think, came in at one point.
Right.
Wow. And and it was just, and it was one of those things where you always think that it's always going to be like that.
Right. Well, it's funny you mentioned the party aspect of San Diego. In 1981, when we launched with Jack Kirby's Captain Victor and the Galactic Rangers, we decided to do what we were calling marketing, which back then comic publishers really weren't marketing their books.
Yeah.
They were publishing them, and then wherever they ended up on the newsstand, that's where they got sold, and that was it.
Mm.
So we had done a number of stunts in earlier years. We had bought bus bench signs, and we had 28 bus bench signs all around San Diego County advertising our stores. We had bought indoor sporting arena comic book nights.
Right.
So everyone went to the sporting arena that night, got a free comic book to promote our stores. We've done a number of interesting things like that. And in 1981, when Captain Victor came out, our first full-color comic, we decided to hold a huge gala party at our offices, which is about 5 miles away from Comic-Con.
Oh, nice.
And so this was a big logistics gig, but we sent out about 500 invitations, and it was basically Comic-Con's entire guest list, plus retailers, publishers, and then a few of our close mail-order fans and our staff. But 5 miles was a formidable distance.
Mm.
So we hired 20 long buses to bus people. Now buses are common for conventions.
Yeah.
It was the first time you could just hop on a bus right outside the convention center and it brought them right to our front door. And so we had, we were busing people. We ran from 7 when the show closed to midnight. They were doing non-pass shuffles. It was only a 20-minute ride between traffic, but nonstop for that 5 hours. And so because I was still very young, I don't drink alcohol, I still don't. We had talked to some friends at Heidi Ho Comics in Santa Monica, who were the 3 owners of Heidi Ho, and also 3 bartenders as a side business. And we asked them to do our bar at our party. And so they told us what to go buy at, what kind of liquor to buy and how much liquor to buy, which I bought the liquor.
Right.
And there's a lot of, it was about $10,000 in liquor. It was a lot of liquor in 81. And we had food and we had drink, we had lots of stuff going on. And we were playing records. We didn't have a DJ, we were just playing records. And so the party's about to open at 7, and for some reason the bartenders aren't there. But the buses start to show up, one after another. And the buses dropping off 30, 40, 50 people at a shot, nonstop. Well, when you go to a party, what do you do first thing when you get inside the party?
No drink.
You go into the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I don't drink, never have. I drink 1 drink a year and I hate it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll be the bartender until the bartender guys show up. And ironically, David Scroggie, who's one of my right-hand guys at Pacific Comics Publishing, he had taken one of the bartenders out for a thank you dinner in advance of bartending. And their dinner ran long.
Oh.
So my bartender was actually purposely missing with David Scroggie. It just happened.
Yeah.
So the bar literally has 30 people crushed on minute 1. They're missing everything else in the building except to go run to the bar and get their first free drink. And it was an open bar, of course.
Yeah.
So the first guy shouts out, Jack Daniels and Coke. Never heard Jack Daniels before. I know what a Coke is. So I'm looking for bottles with name Jack Daniels on it. I was at the look. There's like 30 bottles, whatever this, and I found a Jack Daniels bottle and I've lost Coke cans. I got ice. So I said, everything's 50-50. So you put a little Coke, half it filled up with Jack Daniels, drop an ice cube in, you're good to go. So that guy's winding off and, and the customers are really happy. Like they're coming back pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
And they're coming back drunk really fast. Like really, their asses are getting kicked. Well, I would say 45 minutes later, the first bartender shows up. And James Scroggie also bartended also. And he's like, well, didn't you buy enough liquor? I said, no, I bought $10,000. I said, 60%'s gone already in the first 45 minutes. Because I had the big, now they call them the big red cups. But our cups were huge.
Oh,
and so
man.
it was like half of it. So each bottle was only given like
They were
13 drinks.
trashed.
Oh, we killed them. We had actually murdered them. I murdered them. And this is every celebrity at the show. I mean, every go-to celebrity. Yes, it had Simon and Kirby, Kubert,
Right.
Stan Lee, Norman Mailer was there. I mean, we had the who's who of comic. I mean, it may have been the truly first big blowout comic party for Creator. It was really amazing.
Was that the year that Stan posed naked? Probably your fault.
I don't know about that.
He might have done after that, all that
Right.
drink.
Right. So as the party's going on, my wife, I'm married, the wife from the Marvel times, she had made the cake for us. And she made a flat cake that's it's only 3 inches tall, but she put 10 of them together to make a big cake.
Wow.
And then she had, because it was like, 3 feet by 4 feet wide. And she had done it with our blue iconic icing all over the cake. It looked really good. Our logo was perfectly done. She did a great job. And so people, after the party's cooking for a while, playing the music, we let them roam through our warehouse. So they were picking up, stuff, and the warehouse, cups were left everywhere. It was a great time. And the people got tired or they fell asleep on the side of the road. We put them back in the bus, back to the Red Center. It was totally wild. Yeah. But before we left, I made sure they all had cake. Let's celebrate our first full color comic book, Captain Victory. And my wife at the time had put a little bit too much blue dye in the icing mix.
Oh no.
So every bite turned their teeth blue. Everybody's teeth blue.
Wow.
And so, all right, so you're now having a conversation, and you knew who had cake and who didn't have cake. But when they talked, it was bright white or bright blue. It was like a Kodak moment. And really, what's ironic is at midnight, the party was really humming. We had no alcohol left.
Oh.
We were buzzed, and so we went out to the local liquor store, literally bought them out of all their alcohol, and extended the buses for 2 more hours because people were still showing up at midnight. We didn't realize how parties worked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so jumping forward to the next day, the creators that next day were in miserable shape. I mean, they're all late for panels. I mean, no one's showing up on time for anything, and you can really tell who didn't brush their teeth very well.
Oh, that's funny.
No.
I mean, Jack Kirby was at our booth every day signing copies of Captain Victory, and his teeth were a little blue.
Every day.
And Gil Keen's teeth were a little blue. And Stan Lee's teeth were a little blue. And it was like, oh my God, I killed the entire Comic-Con. It was so strange.
Man, they remembered you for the rest of their lives, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly.
Dude, I don't want to, we have limited time.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little chatty.
No. I want you back.
This is we could have just
Yes.
done this, like, even without the Give Comics Hope. We could have done this and easily gone for 2 hours just talking about,
Sure.
I mean, look, we're still in your teens in this story.
Right.
So
I want to re-invite him to come back next week or week after if you have the
Amazing.
time.
Sure.
We need to hang out.
No,
I'm loving your stories, bro.
Well, I think that it would be worth having you back because I think that let's move on to Give Comics Hope. But
Sure.
I think one of the things that you in our conversations, Bill, about your plans for Give Comics Hope is it's not a short-term thing. It's not like hey, let's raise a certain amount of money and here you go, guys. This will keep you going for a month or two.
Right.
You've got some really long plans for this, haven't you?
I do. So first of all, because when we publish comics, we're very creator-owned friendly comics. And because I had stores early on, of course, I always associated with store owners. They're my best friends. Most of my friends today are store owners. And creators, while I'm not the cool and hip guy, I always felt they were creating the works. They deserve the credit. I mean, yes, we gave them a platform to publish it, but they deserve their name in bright lights, not publisher Bill Schanes. I'm just a guy. So when I was traveling overseas on a huge long bender trip of 3.5 years, on one continuous trip, traveling the world, when COVID hit, I was in Italy, and then it became a worldwide thing. I traveled to Germany to get back to the U.S. And while I was sitting in Germany thinking about our lot in life as far as COVID goes, I realized that a lot of my comic book friends, my retailer friends, were going to be in desperate trouble very soon. And of course, the U.S. had not locked down yet, or worldwide really.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, I've made some money through the decades. I'm not independently wealthy, but I've got enough money to finish my life off and leave a little bit for my kids. But shame on me if I don't try something to help out my fellow comic book store owners. I can sit back and watch it happen, but boy, did I feel guilty if I didn't at least try something. So I came up with the idea of doing some fundraiser ideas while I was in Italy and Germany. And when I got back to the U.S., then this stuff started hitting the fan. It really started happening, and local municipalities are starting to close. Things are starting to compile. And I said, well, I got to put something in place. So what I did was I started calling some of my friends up, my business friends, Philip Sablick at Boom, Dirk Wood back at IDW back then, now at Image, Mike Horn, an old Palisade toy guy, Kevin Winnick, an old Tower Records guy, a guy named Dave Elliott, kind of a UK guy, and a bunch of other guys I know, about 20 guys. And I was kind of giving this song and dance about how we have to join together to help the comic stores out. And me being half Italian, I used my Italian heritage in the sales job of that campaign for volunteerism. And my pitch was, let's do it voluntarily, but if you don't want to volunteer and help me out with this cause, I could just send a horse head to your house and solve this problem completely. So let's just not kill a bunch of horses. Just have me volunteer and let's get this over with. and surprisingly, they all volunteered, so it was very nice. It was very good. And after a few conversations with these, I call it the horsehead group, we came up with the idea of Give Comics Hope. And the first campaign we just launched about a week or so ago. And the idea is getting consumers to donate cash right now when times are tough, I thought would be very, very challenging. But what the food chain of comics has, consumers, retailers, publishers, creators, printers, media partners, everyone in the food chain, everyone owns tons of stuff. They own things. And sometimes the things are worth a lot of money, sometimes the things are worth tonnage for nothing. But I think it's a lot easier to get people to donate things than money. Right now, especially when people are furloughed, lost their jobs, become redundant, money's tight. So we had this idea of doing this send in your things idea, or we call the Drive for Five, and put together a program. And really it's a two-pronged thing. On the first program's got two prongs. One is for high-end items where they have real significant value. I've made a deal with Heritage Auctions, the #1 auction site in the world for collectibles. And they're going to be running an auction on November 11th. That'll be the gavel date for the higher end collections. And that'll be a dedicated Give Comics Hope auction for only our stuff will run, which is pretty cool.
Excellent.
And then we made a deal with Jesse James, who's a very large eBay retailer and kind of a new wave progressive retailer, to do our eBay sales for more of the middle class, lower class items. Not as far as quality goes, but it's just in perceived value. And we need a charity partner, and we partnered with BINC, B-I-N-C, and they're the book industry charitable part of the book industry. And they recently, about a year and a half ago, set up a comic book division. We partnered with them. So we have BINC as our charity partner, Heritage is our high-end auction partner, and Jesse James is our regular donation partner. And between the three partners, we're kind of the marketing promotions arm to rally the forces, to beat the drums loudly. And so, we need retailers that donate 5 items. We need creators who have been really called upon very heavily during this crisis, over and over and over again. I know they feel taxed. I know they're weary of giving. But the challenge is, if I'm right, with COVID and the prolonged shutdown and Diamond coming back out and the DC shuffle and so many crazy things happening all at once.
Oh, yeah.
My belief is that mom and pop shops in general and every industry are going to be on life support at some point in time. And the longer COVID takes hold or keeps hold, that's going to, because the mom and pop shops don't have financial resources to do things for a long period. The creative guys and gals will keep the doors open, but without a critical mass of those stores, you can't support print runs. If you can't support print runs, artists can't do their work. So it does have a direct tie for creators. And I know it's terrible to keep asking the same creators over and over again to give, but quite honestly, this is a standpoint of livelihood. And so even now with Marvel and DC cutting back titles, a lot of creators that have always been employed before aren't employed right now because there's not enough books being published for the big guys. We're reaching out to the creators to donate artwork, rare artifacts, sketchbooks. We've engaged 4 of our friends in the licensing community to reach out to movie studios, to television studios, to get props in. We've got marketing people to do the media routine, the media circus, we're doing that now. So we're really trying to bang the drums pretty loudly, get the message across that everyone can help. We've got a bunch of really crazy videos running right now with donor videos. Eric Larson over at Image did a crazy video for us in duotone, mixed tones. A lot of fun. Kevin Winnick from Tower Records back then is kind of a mixed master of doing some video compilations. And so the campaign just started this last week, and we're hoping that it's about a 6 or 7 week campaign to raise funds through this Drive for 5 donations. And we're encouraging every channel of that business, consumers, retailers. Retailers can help themselves out by downloading inventory. Publishers have inventory. Creators, of course, have artwork, scripts for writers. They can sign scripts. Convention organizers, if there's conventions next year, they can donate exhibit halls, exhibit booths. So we're really trying to touch every touch point that might have an asset that can be turned into cash through auctions. And that's the line. And we do have a second and third completely different program that'll take place after this one closes. But I don't want to mix messaging on the second program yet. But it's already pretty well thought out. I've got a lot of things happening on the second program already, but that'll be quiet until the first program kind of wraps up completely. So we don't have mixed messages going out to different donors and the potential auction buyers.
Excellent. So, is there a specific website or a social media handle where folks can take a more in-depth look at the program and contribute?
Absolutely. So the name of the program is called GiveComicsHope.org. It's very official sounding. That's our website. We've got a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the normal feeds. And the website's got all the information you would need to access how to donate. Of course, we'll take cash, of course, and all the proceeds will be going to Bink. We won't be touching a single dollar. Bink's our charitable partner.
Awesome.
And then you can donate artwork, you can donate comics, slab books, rare things, movie props, whatever you got that's of some value. We're trying to have things come in that have a value of, let's say, $100 or more, because small items, it's hard to process them for any real net value. And we think we might be able to do some good here. Maybe we'll raise a couple $100,000. Maybe we'll put a number up that's pretty spectacular. I'm a bit hesitant to say what I'm trying to shoot for. I've got some pretty lofty goals, but I know we can do a couple $100,000. What I don't know is, can we do something that's maybe got another zero attached? I don't know. That'd be pretty cool. On the high-end donor side, we've been really encouraged by some early donors. So from Image Comics, Robert Kirkman's donating 10 Walking Dead covers.
Oh,
and there's almost none of them on the marketplace.
I know. Oh my God.
We'll have some Bill Sienkiewicz paintings.
Wow.
P. Craig Russell, Julie Bell, Boris Hildebrandt, Joe Linsner, and we've got a nice roster of, and we're just early in the program right now, of getting high-end donations. And of course, we've already got hundreds and hundreds of small stuff coming in already, which is great. So it's going to be pretty exciting. Heritage will be kind of our blowout initial party, and then eBay will do the heavy lifting after that's over through Jesse James.
Okay, so for any type of public donations, is there like a due date or anything that for anybody that wants to get involved and submit?
Yeah, so it's going to be at the end of October for the Drive for 5 part. If you're doing high-end stuff, we need that to arrive at Heritage by October 2nd. So it's just about a week and a half, 2 weeks away. So that one's got kind of a pressure time tag attached to it. For the $100 or so items, a little above, a little below, we've got a good full month and a week or so to get the stuff into Jesse James' place in Arizona.
Are you going to have anything the equivalent of a coffee or anything like that, where if someone feels like, you know what, I don't have much money, but I can give you $5, where you can just people can just make a like simple donations like that?
Yeah, there's a cash button on our site.
Okay.
Just click it and it'll be happy to take your money.
Okay, great.
Now, obviously, more is better always, but not everyone has the wherewithal to give a lot of money, and whatever you can contribute, every dollar helps, every pound helps, every euro helps.
Yeah,
What's nice? Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I was going to say, because I'm going to share all the information at the bottom of the post,
Okay.
everyone. So everybody, please look at every single link, and you're going to see a cool intro video that leads right into the comics hub by YouTube. Because this is a fantastic program. Because LCSs are important, at least to me. You know, that's my little getaway. I don't get out much, man. So yeah, that's my way out, and, you know, and talk with people in the space. You know, so we got to show them some love, man. So thank you for putting something together like that to, you know, give back to the community. It's
Well, these
wonderful.
local, no, these local stores are really are very important. They're almost like a library or a bookstore. This is really a community center. It's where local people
Yeah.
go. Now, when there's conventions out, of course, we all gather for the big shows. But on a week-to-week basis, these comic shops really perform so many services, probably more than many of them realize. And that gathering place, that safe zone, that place of community, that place of like-minded spirits, that's a powerful avenue. And while I have nothing wrong, I have no problem with websites selling stuff online, Amazon or Midtown or Discount or local comic shop and websites. That consumer experience is totally different.
Yeah.
You know, I can see the 1-inch thumbnail and maybe get a brief description and click the button and buy one, and it's a great experience at that level. But walking in, and you know your eyes get a little wider, and you're taking in the color palette, and it's almost like there's a soundtrack behind you when you walk in a comic book store about the wonderment of what you're experiencing, the sensory overload. Hearing other collectors talk about their favorite comics and their favorite storylines and their favorite artists, and the excited clerks and the owners engaging on first name basis,
Yes.
which doesn't happen in supermarkets, doesn't happen at bookstores, doesn't happen. And one of the few things we have in comics and probably hobby gaming stores is you have this hardcore large network of fan bases. You know, quilting stores don't really have that. They have quilting clubs, but they don't come in every week. Independent hardware stores, you don't come every week to buy a new screw or a new nut or a new screwdriver. But the gaming customers and the comic book customers, a weekly trip to Nirvana is what you do. You get your milk for your cereal, and you make a trip to the comic shop. And those places are special, and they deserve our support.
Well, it's
Thank
not.
you.
It's
Well
not
said.
only that. Actually, there's a much larger story there because, you know, without the local comic shop, so many independent publishers wouldn't be able to exist. And it's through those independent publishers that, you know, like younger talent, new talent comes through that eventually works to the big two.
Right.
And if you can't grow that way, because those guys they don't nurture talent anymore. They don't have the time for it. They just want the stars.
Right.
You've got to be like ready to go to, you know, professional level from the get-go. And the smaller publishers, that's what enables us to, you know, that's where we find new talent from.
Right. And I think it's important, again, to call out on creators, for the people that write and draw and illustrate and pencil and ink and color and letter. You know, when there's ever a tragedy in the world, a hurricane, a tornado, a famine, whatever it is, the talent always brings the spirit up. Musicians,
Yeah.
Celebrities, actors and actresses, comic book guys, writers, you know, these are the guys that inspire the masses. Business people don't get out there and say, I own IBM. Don't make, 'cause I'm a rich guy. That doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's the creators that create the imaginations that can inspire people. And like I said earlier, even though our creative teams and our creators out there have been called upon over and over again in the last 6 months, you know, you almost got to go a little deeper, unfortunately to say, to get a few more pieces, whether it's for our cause or other causes like this. We've got a window here to help these stores out. Almost think of it like as insurance. You can prop them up now, and if they survive it, great, give them a little extra insurance money. But if we don't prop them up now and they can't survive it, then there's not going to be a publishing industry as we know it now, and then creators are going to have a hard time getting jobs that pay anything. So it's a tough scenario, but hopefully everyone can feel good about it, and you know, no one's getting paid, everyone's volunteering everything, and hopefully people feel inspired to give a little bit, and if they have a little bit more wherewithal, then give a little deeper.
Yeah.
So there we go, folks. So you heard it here first, man. Definitely give support, show some love to the community. I'm going to share all the posts right underneath this.
Right.
Bill will be back We got to
Okay.
continue this, and we got to work on that because we want to do this live too. Because we had a lot of people really wanted to see you live, and they probably had some questions for you
Sure, sure.
and wanted to engage. So we would love to have you back if you could spare the time and continue your awesome stories. Because definitely want to dig in more, man. Because your journey is inspiring the hell out of
Absolutely.
me.
Oh.
Means from
Absolutely.
13 years old hustling, it reminds me of me. When I was in sixth grade, I was selling comics to kids that would go to religious instruction. My own comics, right? They leave it in the desk. I take it again and then sell it back to them a week later. I was the crazy
Abs-
hustle. That's the New York hustle.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Just wanted to say your comics. I live in a small town in Wuppertal, a small town in Germany next to Düsseldorf. And when I grew up in the 80s, your comics came to my local comic shop, the Pacific Comics. I had the full run of the Twisted Tales of Somerset Holmes. Those were the first indie comics I bought. And your comics traveled all the way to Germany. And they made my childhood. Fantastic stuff, sir.
Wow.
I'm so happy.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, Chris was there. He just listened to the stories and loving it. I can't wait. I think he's
Absolutely.
thinking of another column. and so with that, this is the International Comic Crusaders. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to click on the links below. Support ComicCrusaders.com, undercovercapes.com. International Crusaders. You can find us on Twitter at ICC on CC. With that, I'm Al Mega with the team. Wepa, hasta la próxima. Much love, guys.
Talk
Okay,
to you
guys.
later.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.